it strikes me that one of the interesting things about working with stories is the way in which the process of doing that enriches the lives of people who immerse themselves in it. It's partly the research you do and the doors that opens up, and it's partly the process of looking for that telling detail. And as you're doing this in your writing all the time, trying to figure out what the most economical telling detail you can deliver to the reader to evoke a scene. At the same time, when you go out and about, you start to observe very closely to try to figure out what those details might be. And that kind of enriches your experience of the real world as you kind of turn your senses up and your reception up to the maximum. And so for many people, creative writing becomes far more than the production of a story, a poem, whatever it's going to be. It becomes something that changes their life, enriches their life. Now, 4 years ago, I started on a process of research towards a story idea that I'd had. And it was a story that featured crows. And I thought, well, one way I could research crows is, instead of reading books, I could try to befriend a crow or two and see what happens, see what I learn. And so I went to a car park where there were 2 crows that I've seen before and I've watched before, and I brought some bird food with me, a packet of bird food. And at first, when I tried to feed the crows, because I thought that would be a good way of making friends, they were very cautious of me. And instead of just swooping down and coming to eat the food, what they did was find a branch directly behind me and above, from where they could watch me and what I was doing without me being able to see them. But when I've thrown food down on the ground and gone away, they do a cautious flyover, and then they land, approach, and then they'd start to eat. But after a couple of months of doing this, the pattern had quite changed. Instead of sitting in that branch behind and above me, they started finding perches directly in front and over, so that they could make sure that I saw them, because they were afraid that I might leave without remembering to feed them. And they came very much closer. And gradually I started to be able to tell these 2 crows apart just by their physical appearance. And I learned to recognize, when they started nesting, I learned to recognize which was the male and which was the female. And I started to be able to determine that they actually had quite different characters. They would behave in different ways. There was a dominance one way between them, and also a different degree of boldness. And that varied through the year as they had eggs in the nest, and as they had chicks, and as they had fledglings, and as they didn't. That all kind of changed through the year. And I've known these crows for 4 years now, and they know me quite well. And when I go to this particular place, and go through, if I haven't brought food, they will follow me and try to make sure that I've seen. Now, the effect of this, as well as being fabulous research for the book, has really enriched my experience of the world, because now whenever I see a crow, maybe sitting by the roadside or up in a tree or flying, I have, through this close observation of those 2 crows, I start to have a much clearer understanding of what they're doing, what that individual crow is doing at that individual moment. And so when I'm driving through the countryside, I'm seeing all these personalities, all these different characters, and it has brought a lot of joy to me, and it's enriched my life tremendously.